dress is plain, white shirt, high leg pants, nothing fashionable, not worth a flirt. His hair is greasy, no style to it, but forget the look, his dance is a hit. A beautiful girl in a sexy suit sits at the bar, looking so cute. He notices her, she sees him too. She walks up to him, asks what you're gonna do. She says with a sexy pout, I wanna dance. He doesn't say a word, just gives a glance. She walks away and says, you're just a nerd. He keeps on dancing and doesn't say a word. Another fun evening for the cool nerd. Another fun evening for the cool nerd. For the cool nerd. For the cool nerd. For the cool nerd.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good day, whatever it is when you're watching this fantastic program, the Danny Schneider Show of Music. You know, if you happen to enjoy that cool nerd music you just heard, I'm going to mail you one of these cassettes completely free of charge, just to you. All you got to do is watch for the phone number at the end of the show, or there's also an email address at America Online. You can email me, that'd be a lot of fun, and I'll mail you one of these tapes. And also, I can mail you a schedule of these shows as they come on in your area. Today I have a guest. This is a show about music, of course. And the guest I have today, I'm really excited to have. He worked at Arista Records for 7 years in the A&R department with Clive Davis. And I'm definitely going to ask him some questions about Clive Davis. His name is Ritch Esra. Ritch, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Ritch also puts out this registry, A&R registry, for all you musicians out there who've made demos and all. This comes out every 2 months, and he updates it with the A&R people's name, the record company, the phone number, and even their assistant's name. It's a gold mine. It's amazing. And he does another one here for music publishers, same thing. You can subscribe and get these mailed to you every couple months. If you're interested in any more information, you can give that number or email address at the end of the program. You can give me a call at that phone number, and I can put you in touch with them. And another one, the Film and Music Guide. What really excited me, though, too, was this video he's just released, How to Get a Record Deal. And there's all kinds of people on here. There's Phil Collins and Michael Bolton and you name it, producers, Rick Rubin. you name it on here. We're going to talk about them. And I have a bunch of my friends here today also to ask Ritch some questions. Every one of these people are musicians themselves. Ritch, let me ask you about the Arista Records and Clive Davis. So when it was in the 70s, I was in Sacramento sitting around reading my book that Clive Davis wrote, Inside the Record Business. I must have read it about 3 or 4 times about him signing Janis Joplin and Bob Dylan, and there was a good part about Janis Joplin in that book. You maybe know what I'm talking about. And anyway, tell me a little bit about your relationship with Clive Davis and what you learned from him. I'm sure you learned a lot of things. And maybe what is one thing that Clive Davis, if he was here now, would say to myself and musicians and our viewers out there about how would be the best way to get into this record business as it is now?
Well, I certainly can start by saying working for him was probably the most influential. He is the most influential person in my professional life, bar none. I was not aware, when I first started working for the company, I was not aware of the depth of his history. So I didn't come into it with like, oh my God, it's Clive Davis. It was sort of like, as I began working for him, I found out that he wrote this book, and I read the book and I began working with him. I think probably the greatest thing about Clive, for a man in that position, is his uncanny sense of talent and song sense.
I see.
He has an unprecedented ability to not only be able to spot great talent, but he has another art, which is a severable art, which is knowing what to do with that talent. It's one thing to be able to find a Whitney Houston or a Guns N' Roses or a Metallica. It's another thing to be able to know what to do with them, to know how to make great records with them. They are two severable arts, and they are something that Clive has really mastered. I think the other thing that I learned, probably one of the most important things that I learned from Clive, was the art of the song and the importance of the song and how to identify the great elements in a song and what are the elements that make a song great. That's something that I think he has become legendary for, is the ability to pick hit singles.
I see.
And match that song with the right artist. You know, the right song with the wrong artist can be, you know, fruitless. But the right song with the right artist, as we've seen, the results can be astounding.
Are the elements to a great song then different for each artist?
Yes. Well, it's not that they're different for each artist. I mean, a hit song is one that connects, but yes, they are different in the sense that a hit song for Metallica, a hit song for Whitney Houston, a hit song for Aretha Franklin is going to be different than a hit song for Anita Baker. You have to look at the artist, you have to look at their audience, you have to look at the background, you have to look at where that artist is coming from. I don't think that a hit song for Whitney Houston and what she could get away with lyrically would be the same thing that would work for, let's say, Aretha Franklin. You know, she's at a different station of her life. I don't think you'd believe. For instance, a good example would be Saving All My Love for You. That lyric, which was an enormous hit for Whitney Houston, you wouldn't believe that lyric coming from Aretha Franklin. From a 41-year-old woman, that lyric wouldn't work. And that's an important distinction when you're talking about having a hit song with the right artist.
It certainly works for Whitney Houston.
Absolutely. And many others. I mean, Clive's had success with Alan Jackson. He's had success with many other artists, you know, Dionne Warwick, Aretha Franklin, Kenny G, Manilow, many others on the label.
You know, many of us here and the people out there viewing the program are interested in getting their tapes to a person such as yourself, an A&R. And how would a person go about this? I mean, I know for sure, out of horrible experience over many years of sending your tape in the mail is foolish.
Right.
Well, thank you. You call me foolish, huh?
No, it is foolish to do. I
know, I'm just kidding. What would be a better approach, or what? Give us some advice. Give us some help.
Okay.
Please.
I think the best way to be heard, I think the answer to that question really lies in committing yourself to a lifestyle. Committing yourself to a way of life which primarily involves networking. It involves living that life, being at the clubs, joining the organizations. I think there are many ways to reach an A&R person. Through a manager, through a lawyer, through a publisher, through an agent, through someone that the A&R department has worked with, through another songwriter or another artist that they have relationships with.
Never directly, though, hardly ever.
If you don't have a relationship with them,
then how are you going to get
then
one?
you're not going to, then you're not going to be able to get through, because you got to remember there's 600 people wanting to do that. And if A&R people just listen to unsolicited material, that's all they would do.
Yeah.
I think that it's an important factor to know how that system works. It works through referral and through relationships.
Right.
Also through a producer. Find a producer that has a relationship with that.
Somebody they already know and respect.
Exactly, to get your material heard. And that could be, you know, as I said, a manager, an attorney, an artist, another songwriter that works with somebody on the label. It could even be through assistants. I know Jackson Browne got his tape listened in 1972 to Asylum Records. He got it to an assistant, and the assistant liked the photo, and she liked the tape, and she got David Geffen to listen to it.
I see.
And he signed Jackson on that basis.
In a way, it's kind of common sense, but boy, I tell you.
Yeah, but the point is that I don't think there's one way to do it. I think there's many ways to get in.
Excellent. I don't want to hog up the whole time here. This is Fred Godlash. He has a question for you.
Band Pandora's Child. I got one important question. Can I get this letterboxed? Laserdisc? No? Okay. Thought I'd ask that. Okay. Yeah, I'm Fred from Pandora's Child. I said that. I have a question. Now, you gave a generalization on how to get in. What are some of the shortcuts? I mean, you were on the inside. I mean, what's like a real cool way? Of course, if you tell everybody now, it's not a cool way anymore. But what's like a real shortcut that you could think of that you knew overall that would get guys in the door through record labels?
Usually through making contacts with other people that the A&R people work with. Like if you're an artist, the best way I know of to get yourself through the door is to create a buzz for yourself as a band. That's probably the easiest way, because then you don't have to go to A&R. A&R will come to you. Management will come to you. That's probably the surest way. I think another way, I heard of one time somebody once, they got in basically through a very cool, clever way. They sent this A&R person a baby shoe, one baby shoe, in a box with a note that said, now that I've got my foot in the door, how about giving me an ear and letting my tape in the door?
It wasn't a kidnapping thing.
It wasn't, no, and the A&R person was so knocked out with that concept that he called the guy and took a meeting with him. Now that was a very clever, ingenious way which it was an original way which he got in. There's many ways. I think one of the best ways that we haven't talked about yet is joining some of the organizations, such as National Academy of Songwriters and the Los Angeles Songwriters Showcase. These are things that A&R people often go to, and publishers as well, to listen to and evaluate material. It's a great way to network with other writers, and it's also a great way to network with actual A&R and publishers themselves. The other way that I would say, if you want to make direct contact with A&R people, is to go to the music business seminars. There's several of them. There's the South by Southwest. There's the Canadian Music Week. There's the Philadelphia Music Conference. There's the North by Northwest. There's several. So that's another very, very important way to make the contacts directly, or to shortcut it.
Okay, I understand that. Now, how about, like, say I want to try like a publishing deal, like for a movie or something like that. I run into the same walls that I would with record labels. Now, do you know like any shortcuts to get to them that's easier? As far as like, say I saw a TV show, or one that's going to start up. Okay, would sending a demo to them or calling them up, or how would you go about doing that?
Film music is a whole different animal. Altogether. That's really a different industry. That's the TV industry or the film industry. I think it works somewhat differently. I think in the film and TV industry, they generally want to work with people, because the money and the time element is such at a crunch. They need everything yesterday. They generally work with people who they have the relationships established with. One of the best ways, I would say, to circumvent that would be to try to make contact with people that they do business with. That's the best way, I would say, to get in with a publisher. Try to find out, I mean, most publishers have like, 15, 20 writers that they publish. Try to work with some of those writers, or if you can't work with them, try to contact some of the writers that Sony publishes, or MCA or whatever, and send them material. And see, I mean, I know that's happened. I know Martika got a deal on Sony through doing that through Famous Music. She wrote to one of their writers, and they hooked up and started collaborating. You bring up the publishing angle, which is a very good one. Alanis Morissette, her current deal came through her publisher, MCA Publishing. She was a signed writer to MCA Publishing. They hooked her up with one of their writers, Glenn Ballard. They wrote the material for this album and then shopped it. So her deal came through via her publisher. And the way she made contact with that was in Canada.
A lot of networking still.
Yeah, again, through networking.
Kevin Slag.
I can't get a mic here.
I'm Kevin Slag, I'm a freelance musician. I'm just wondering, how realistic is it for an unknown band to expect to get signed just by showcasing in clubs? Or do they have to go and get the music attorney or get a publishing deal first?
Again, there's no specific one way to do it. I think there's many spokes to the center of the wheel, and I think that showcasing, I think, is probably one of the most important elements because it puts you out into the public. It gives you the visibility. Making contact with people, that's one aspect. Having the songs and doing the live performance. From that, what people want to see is who you are as a person, who you are as an artist. Do you have additional material? What do you like to work with? Can we work with you? What kind of relationship can we build? An artist isn't signed strictly by the basis of a live showcase or strictly by the basis of a great demo. There's more to it than that, and that's the thing. I mean, it's not like people hear a tape and then go see a band live and then want to sign it right then and there. It's rare that that happens today because you're dealing with people. So again, it's about relationships. I know a successful A&R man who found Jane's Addiction when they were starting out, when they were pretty much about to be signed, and wouldn't sign them, even though he knew they would be very successful, because he said, I knew I could never work with Perry Farrell. And that was that's an important factor in determining, and he knew how great they were, and he still loves and respects them, but he knew how difficult that he would be to work with, and therefore chose not to do it on that basis.
And they only lasted one album anyway.
Two, I think. They did two and then moved on or broke up.
Great record.
So yeah, that's an important factor as well. I think showcase is one aspect. It's probably one of the more important ones in terms of creating a buzz, because it's where the most amount of people can see you and create sort of this generation or following for you as a band or as an artist. I think it's also important for another reason. In today's world of the music business, radio play is more and more and more difficult to attain. It's very difficult to get, whether you're a big artist or a small beginning artist, especially as a beginning artist. And I think one of the things that live performance does, so far as a record company is concerned, and A&R especially, is it lets a record company have the assurance that this artist can go out and garner an audience. Building a following or building a buzz says that there are people out there actually who want to see this artist. They want to pay money to see this artist. That's an important factor. That's one of the most important factors in terms of selling records. If you don't have the ability to perform live, it's sort of like having a relationship with somebody who's never there. You eventually will move on to someone else. And this becomes an important factor when airplay cannot easily be gotten. The record company can at least take assurance that this band can go out and build a following and actually find an audience who wants to buy their record. Build it town by town. That's one of the more important reasons as to why the live performance is so important.
Right.
Excellent. Justin Page.
Hello, Justin Page, producer, songwriter. I was wondering if you could tell me, to what extent does a record label and its A&R department depend on independent songwriters for the writing of material for their already signed acts, and how are those relationships formed?
Okay. Generally, the record companies do rely on outside writers for material. They generally, in today's market, do it for artists in specific fields, primarily in the pop and R&B field, whereby you're working with a talent who is primarily a vocalist or primarily an artist who doesn't write their own songs. It becomes, if you have, and a lot of times that's one aspect. The other aspect is working with a talent that does write and getting involved in a co-writing situation. Now, as a writer, if you're just strictly an outside writer-producer, again, there's many ways to do that. You can do that either through the artist manager. You can do that through, but again, it takes some sort of relationship with someone that the artist knows in order to introduce that into the fold. Aerosmith, when they were signed to Geffen, were introduced to Desmond Child via John Kalodner, who was their A&R person at the label. He felt that they needed an added element to the chemistry of writing to come up with viable material for a record. They had done with Mirrors, it did not do well. The follow-up album, he felt that they needed stronger material. You look at many, many situations, Taylor Dane, you know, Jody Watley, Paula Abdul, Whitney Houston, Anita Baker. These are all artists who in today's marketplace do not write their own songs, Streisand. And that's a severable talent, the ability to come up with a material. So yeah, I think it's very viable to do. It's more difficult, I think, for the outside writer to penetrate that barrier. And one of the ways that they can do it generally is by having success, by having one of their songs covered by an artist. When you have a song that's covered by an artist, meaning your song is recorded by a Paula Abdul or by somebody, rather than a co-writing situation, it becomes much easier for you then to have the contact with the record company to get in the door. They start calling you rather than you calling them. But I think it is viable today. I don't think it's viable for a certain sector of talent. For a lot of the street, quote-unquote, street bands, you know, your Green Days, your rock and roll garage kind of vibe that is so prevalent today with on so many labels. I think those acts are pretty much self-contained, and I don't believe record companies really have an interest in putting co-writers with them, even though the writing may not be extraordinarily strong. I think your best shot as a writer, if you're wanting to work with artists, is to work with the A&R people who need songs for artists that don't write. Your Paul Abduls, your Aretha Franklins, your Dionne Warwicks, your Whitney Houstons, so forth. You can also deal with the producers of those people. You can also deal with the managers, and a great source for those are the various tip sheets that are out there. Crossroads, SongLink, you know, producer report. These are all things that like report what producers are doing, what activities they have,
Where do you get
who's
those?
looking. You know, I off the top of my head, I cannot think of the addresses. I have them. If people want to write in and ask you where you can get those tip sheets, I'll be happy to provide a whole list of them. There's about 5 or 6 of them that are really viable that tell you, Aretha Franklin looking for material, send your material to this A&R person or this producer or this country artist is looking or this so-and-so is looking for a co-write situation. I know SongLink is one of the very few that does co-writes. There's one out right now called Music Report, which just does people in the film and TV industry looking to get songs in the film and television area. Music Report is a great one for that. So if they write in for that, I can.
Boy, you know,
that.
time just flies when we're doing this. We're not quite done, but I definitely would like to get in the roll in a 2-minute segment from your video here. So why don't we go ahead and roll that in the control room, please?
Or even an artist, what is it about that artist or band that would appeal to me the most? The number one thing is songs, above anything else. Whether it has nothing to do whatsoever with anything except the songs. Songs are so important. Without songs, and that's probably one of the reasons why we're doing this tape, is without songs, there's nothing.
The acts that I take on have to have a great vibe, because that's what record labels will sign. There are a lot of good bands that have great songs. There's a lot of great writers out there. There are probably a lot of great writers watching this that think they're great writers, and I'm sure they are great writers. But to get up there and to move an audience is very difficult. That's the hardest thing there is.
The elements that I look for when I hear a new band is basically musical. I personally think that the musical side, you know, the melodies and to some extent, to a great extent, the lyrics, but mainly the melodies and everything are the real important aspect of records that I like. And I've heard records that have been great musically and have terrible lyrics, and I've seen them be huge hits. And I've never yet seen a song that had the greatest lyrics and absolutely zero music be a hit.
Nowadays, it seems like you need a package. You need to be more than just a musician, you know, for example, or just a singer. There has to be a package to go with that in general now. It's not just a great voice. It's not just a great player. How do they look? Believe it or not, I mean, I hate to say it, I thought I would never see this happen in the industry to the degree that it is now, but it really is important as to the whole package, how you look, what demeanor you got. I mean, what's the vibe of your act? I mean, Prince has gotten involved with that for years. I mean, getting acts that not necessarily the greatest as far as singers or or et cetera, but he puts that package together where they're marketed right, you know, and he knows how to put them together with an idea or vibe.
Yeah, this video is just packed with excellent stuff. I watched it several times and took notes and all this. Really an excellent job, filled with great suggestions and encouragement and all. We have time for one more quick question. Gina Nemo.
Hi. My name's Gina Nemo. I used to act on a show called 21 Jump Street, and now I'm a singer-songwriter. And you've answered a lot of my questions already, so I thought I'd ask a generic question. What does an A&R person actually do?
What does an A&R person do? Actually, the job description of an A&R person is divided into two categories. The first category actually is something that isn't talked about a lot. Their job is to work with the talent on the label that they work for to take that talent to the next level, which means making records with that artist, finding the right producer to work with them. It means basically an A&R person at a company is basically the first person that an artist comes in contact with. They are the contact or the point person for that artist within the rest of the company. It is that person's responsibility, the A&R person's responsibility, to be like a cheerleader within the company, to motivate promotion, to motivate marketing and sales and publicity and advertising and artist development and video, to help them understand who that artist is, what they're about, what they're going for. So hopefully you can motivate everyone else to get them on your team and to see the vision of what you have for that artist. The other responsibility, and also that also implies finding songs, finding producers, working with the different elements within a band, putting out a lot of fires. The other element that an A&R person does is the one more commonly known, which is talent scout. It is also the A&R person's responsibility to find and to bring in new talent. And that role of bringing in talent and the type of talent that they bring in are going to depend on two factors. Number one, it's going to depend on the taste and sensibility of the artist, of the A&R person themselves. And number two, it's going to depend on the corporate culture of the label itself. In other words, what kind of talent is that?
Okay, Rich, thank you very much for coming today. We could talk for a couple hours, I'm sure. If you would like to get a hold of Rich and any of his publications or video, call that number at the end of the program or email. If you would like a free copy of The Cool Nerd, same thing. I want to thank all my friends for being here today, and especially you, Rich. We learned a lot from you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Without going out of my door,